Now we're going to take this chain that's been sitting around the bottom bracket shell there. We're going to lift it up and place it on the chain ring all the way down so that it engages all the teeth of the chain ring. And then we're going to pull the rear wheel back in those dropouts to tighten the chain. Once we get it back and we get it centered right here in this part of the two chain stays, then we can go ahead and tighten these two axle nuts. One on this side and the axle nut on this side. With the chain tight, it should only move up and down around a ½ inch. Now we can go ahead and insert our shifting push rod into the axle on the right side. That goes all the way in. This is first gear, there's second gear, there's third gear. And to activate that, we now have a bell crank that sits on there. And the bell crank fits over top of that and all the way on to the axle nut right there. So you can see it on the axle nut from this side. Fits on like that. And then this little 2.5 millimeter Allen screw right here tightens up a little bit to hold it onto that position. Now, look around here, and what I want to make you realize is that when you set this on there, you want this cable to be very close to the lower edge, the shift cable to be very close to the lower edge of the chainstay. One of the last things to check is our shifting to make sure it's adjusted properly. The shifter goes from 1 to 2 to 3, and number 2 has a small black triangle next to it. That's your alignment gear. When it's in gear 2, we're going to look down at the bell crank and make sure that the yellow indicators are in the right position. So down here at the rear wheel, we have a bell crank, and we have 2 lines on a window exterior and a dark yellow line or broad yellow line on the inside. That's actually part of the bell crank that's going to move back and forth. If I shift this to gear number 1, that yellow line disappears. Then it comes back into position in gear number 2 and all the way in for gear number 3. If it's not between those 2 yellow lines, you could have some problems shifting. But if it's adjusted properly, it should sit right between those yellow lines. If you need to adjust it, there's a barrel adjuster right here, and by loosening this or tightening it, you can move that yellow line into different positions. You're just changing the length of the cable housing essentially. And if I move it right to there, it puts that yellow line interior between those 2 yellow exterior lines, and that's right where you want to be to have proper shifting. When you're ready to install the rear wheel on the 7i, on your shifter, make sure it's in gear number 1. And now we're going to insert this fixing nut into our cassette pulley. There's a little spot right about at 10 o'clock where this fits into it. Okay, but what you're going to use is this little spoke that goes into a small hole right here at about 9 o'clock. And it's going to rotate this cassette pulley downward so you have enough space and slacken the cable to actually insert this into that spot. All right. And then this comes out. All right, let's do that one more time so you can see it. This goes down like that. You have slack in the cable, and that pops out. It goes back in with the nut on the outside, slides into that space, and then like that. And that's what this little spoke is for, to go in that little hole and give you a lever. Right? Now that that's in there, the last thing we have to do is to move right here and push this cable through that spot right there so that your end of the cable fits into the little arm on the cassette pulley. All right? So it's all set up. The cable housing stops there, the cable wraps around, and it fits into this little cam slot right here. Now we're going to make sure that the shifting gears align properly. And you'll notice there's a little window in this plastic piece here that's the cassette pulley, and it has a yellow line on it right there. That's going to rotate around, and in gear number 4 it should line up with another yellow line that shows up as we approach gear 4. So watch that window. Here's gear number 2, 3, 4. And now you see the one yellow line up with the other yellow line. That means in gear 4, they're aligned properly. They'll shift through all the gears as expected. If this is not aligned properly, there's a barrel adjuster up here on the twist grip shifter, right here, and you adjust this back and forth wherever it's needed to make sure the gear number 4 yellow lines line up down at the hub. At that point, it's all ready to go.